Side note, upon writing this review, 1.0.2 was dropped, so I'll somewhat mention the issues I dealt with playing the previous version. Alright, it's about time I review this awaited remake. Our main question we all have in mind, is it the ambitious remake that fans have waited for decades, or is it a dud? So hold up, how did this remake came to be? Well, let's take a crash course. So in late 2009, a new concept art for Joe and Mac was shown from Golgoth Studios as an announcement for an upcoming remake, but it fell quiet for an entire decade of the 2010s, until in late 2021, the development resurfaced that the game's release window will drop within the next year. Later in 2022, a teaser by Microids and Mr. Nuts Studios, wait, Mr. Nuts? You mean that Mr. Nuts? Was revealed, but is overwhelmed by this epilogue of time travel to 1991, reminiscing to when the arcade version was released. The gameplay tease was only shown for 5 seconds, but upon viewing comments, fans were mixed on the art style and the animation technique used called tweening, which we will get into later. By November 2022, the game was finally released for PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, PC, and the Xbox One Series XS. As of now, I will be reviewing the Nintendo Switch version. Let's get into it. So the title screen appears and it's all too familiar. The two new options in first glance is that for player 1, you have the option to change your character, so Mac is now not a 2-player default anymore, and now there's a difficulty setting as well. Pretty cool. The new art direction in my opinion is not the best and not the worst. It reminds me of one of those shows that would air on Cartoon Network for a short while and would never get a rerun. There really isn't much to say about the control scheme for this remake because it plays just the same as its arcade predecessor. I also have to note about a certain bug fix that's implemented in the new update. So in version 1.0, weapon charging originally had no sound cue, which was somewhat difficult to know when your weapon was ready. But thankfully this issue was fixed. Most of the level designs are pretty much the same, but there were assets that were previously missing but thankfully restored in the latest update. For example, this stage in the arcade version had a river of flammable oil in the bottom, and using the fireballs onto it will ignite into a flaming ocean. But on the previous version of this game, trying to do the same here is completely unresponsive. Again, fixed. I will give the developers an applause for the attention to detail on certain bosses. For example, the Ghost T-Rex boss, which was originally just a giant skull latched onto a spinal cord, is now a fully structured T-Rex skeleton. And the final boss has now been revamped into a primordial snake. The new music in this game is alright, though I will always prefer the SNES soundtrack thanks to its impressive sound chip. Back in the teaser, fans have criticized that the animation is being relied on tweening. What is tweening, you may ask? Well, it's a very basic animation method that moves a small portion of an object to give a transition of movement. It's like puppetry. You don't need to redraw countless frames in order to make movement. It's a less time-consuming method of animation that's commonly used in shows and flash media nowadays. Compared to the arcade's frame-by-frame render to the remake's tweening, it's a day and night situation. Though I will say that I wish the remake went with frame-by-frame animation. You look at games like the Earthworm Jim Duology, and that was in the 90s. They indeed mimicked hand-drawn animation and implemented it into consoles, which is so impressive to this day. Even the Earthworm Jim HD remake from 2010 retained using frame-by-frame animation. Think about it, this has been in development for an entire decade, and they had enough time to utilize frame-by-frame animation, but instead they went with tweening at the end of the day, and it's a huge missed opportunity in my book. Now for the other new addition for this remake is that there's an extended mode. There really isn't much to say except it's just redesigned levels with slightly harder difficulty. For my first experiences of playing this mode on the previous version, it felt very incomplete to the point that the later stages were riddled with bugs. Like this part right here. After my character lost life, the game didn't proceed to fade and respawn my character. It just kept scrolling thinking that my character hasn't been killed off the screen entirely. This is a huge major fix of this new update. So far everything is playable without any soft bugs or bugs. Overall, a welcome addition for this remake, and that's New Joe and Mac. While this remake aims to be the definitive version of all the ports, I kinda deem it replaceable. The older ports and the arcade original are still worth going back to thanks to their own uniqueness. With the compromise of releasing an update that fixes issues since its release date, it's good that the developers are still keeping an eye out for this game. I rated 5.5 jacks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, I hope you leave a like for this video and subscribe to look forward for my upcoming content very soon. This is Traderball Jack signing out. Take care of yourself.